Hello and welcome to the Atlantic Current. I'm Vince Martin, here as always with Tull McAdoo from the Irish Politics newsletter. We're going to start in the United States with the biggest story, which is basically this week, Trump seems to be working towards de-escalation. He had a failed attempt to pressure Denmark and Europe over Greenland. He's backing down from that. Then we had the tragic shooting of Alex Preddy in Minneapolis this weekend. It seems like there he's looking to make a deal, pull back on some of the force that ICE and other agencies have been using there. So that's the big story right now, the sense of de-escalation.
Yes, de-escalation has come a little bit too late. I think Trump realizes the danger he's in here with images that were broadcast around the world of a man kneeling to get up off his feet and being gunned down multiple times by multiple agents on the street.
You're saying around the world, it literally is around the world, right? This is a big story in Europe, this is not just an American story anymore.
No, it's not an American story. And there was some shocking parallels drawn with Nazi officers in World War II shooting Jews dead on the street as well. It's horrific. I'm not sure if we could say anything that would add to the anger that's felt across the world about what we're seeing in the land of the free. They're attacking peaceful protesters. And it struck me afterwards that, all the talking heads from Trump's administration, Miller and his pals, saying that, we don't tolerate armed insurrection on our streets because apparently he was armed, the victim was armed. But there's 1,001 images all over the internet and anywhere you care to look of people marching through the streets of some states armed to the teeth with AR-15s and the like, So. Yeah,
during protests against lockdowns in 2020, for instance, absolutely.
Yeah. People marching through the streets of America with machine guns. So we can't believe anything that comes out of the administration's mouth, but they are talking about de-escalation. They said Bonvino away, they've moved him out of Minnesota.
Yeah, Kristi Noem is getting sidelined as well. Bringing in Tom Homan, who is a long-time ICE official, actually worked in the Obama administration running their policy. So he's going to drive some more professionalism here and gives the Trump administration a way to perhaps make a deal with Democrats by offering somebody who has experience and who's going to alter the rules of engagement and things like that. It's worth taking a second to go back to what you were saying about Preddy being armed and the fact that many right-wing protests, again, particularly in 2020, featured armed protesters. Trump has gotten a lot of pushback from his base on that issue of people from the administration and Trump himself coming out and saying, oh, well, you can't bring guns to a protest. And part of why I think he is scrambling to de-escalate here, to the extent that he is it's not just the images going around the world. It's not just European world American opinion about the murder itself. He's scrambling a little bit because there are a lot of people in his base who are just as upset about what is going on, perhaps for different reasons.
Yeah.
But there are people who, his supporters in the media and even in Congress who are saying this is unacceptable, this is un-American.
And I think a real indicator of Trump realizing he was in serious public relations disaster mode was the fact that 2 days later he came out and he said he was going to invade Canada. It's kind of Canadian airspace if they didn't buy their jets from him. So, again, anytime something bad happens within the Trump orbit, he escalates something somewhere else so people try and take their eye off the ball and so, oh, look what he's doing over here again, So we'll see if he does de-escalate. It remains to be seen. I wonder one of the demands from Governor Tim Walz was for his electoral register, was it not?
Attorney General Pam Bondi sent a letter to Walz and said, we need to work together. And that was one of the things that she asked for. And we're going to talk a little later about another pretty big story along that front, which has not gotten enough attention at all. We actually have two stories we're going to talk about, which I think really are perfect examples of what you're saying, this idea of, oh, well, he's de-escalating here, but he's going to then at the same time escalate somewhere else. And whether that's, necessarily a coherent strategy or just the fact that these guys are just always escalating everywhere. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. And I do think it's at least modestly good news that they are trying to back down a little bit in Greenland and Minneapolis. I actually said on this podcast like a month ago that I didn't think they'd be able to do that because I didn't think that they left themselves any off ramps, particularly with the language. I think to
agree
sit
with you there. Yeah.
But they're going to see if they can pull it off. A lot of that is going to come down to whether his base is willing just to forget what they were saying about Greenland 3 weeks ago and what they've been saying about Minneapolis for the past few months. And that's going to be a very interesting test, I think. Is there anything going on in Ireland at the moment?
Yes, we had some biblical flooding so bad that I thought a plague of locusts was going to follow it over the hills. We had Storm Chandra. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. Who knows? Who cares? It didn't so much as hit Dublin and Wicklow and Wexford, but it jumped them in a back alley and rifled through their pockets, and it kind of left the whole east coast of Ireland looking like it lost an argument with a weather event. In fairness, kind of nobody knew this weather event was coming. Roads vanished under brown water, which is kind of, never a good colour for anything.
No, it's not.
Motorists were making out their cars do kind of like boats and the like. Obviously, Ireland's public transport is a very delicate ecosystems, like having dodgy bowl or the likes. One bad turn and everything just stops working. So
right,
it was an Irish version of the Poseidon Adventure.
Good Lord,
or a disaster, more like it would be more apt. And as we are recording this, the rain is tumbling down again, and we're expecting another massive flood. It hasn't stopped raining in Ireland since Christmas, and it just built up and built up and built up and cascaded down the hills into the towns by the seas, and the rivers burst their banks. Insurance is going to be a massive thing again.
Wow. Okay.
And also, politicians will take the blame for not planning for long-term weather events that are increasingly becoming more frequent. So there's a big conversation at the moment in Ireland about who's to blame, who's going to pay for it, and what can we do to stop it happening again. So that's where we are with Storm Chandra.
Yeah, I mean, that's a common argument around the world. I'm sure right now we have that argument in America after hurricanes and things like that, where we need these 20-year projects. And the most famous one, of course, was Hurricane Katrina in Louisiana in 2005. Yes. There were years and years of people telling the government, if we get a 1 in 100-year storm, the levees are going to fail. You need to do something about this. And the government never did anything about it, and thousands of people died. And I do have a little bit of sympathy for the politicians because, it's not much of a campaign issue.
No one ever is.
It's not something that wins you votes at the moment, and it can often be something that leads you to lose votes because that spending could have been allocated towards more short-term needs. But I hope you're dry and safe at least.
Yeah, I am. I'm dry, I'm safe, and I've stocked up on whiskey, so that's the main thing. But getting away from the weather.
Let's move to another disaster.
Yes, let's move to another disaster. You're going to talk about a fellow called Ryan Wedding.
I think in the context of this de-escalation narrative, there's two stories this week that are pretty interesting. And the first is about Ryan Wedding. He was arrested in Mexico last week, as we'll discuss, under circumstances that are unclear.
Tell us who he is.
He is a Canadian originally. He is a former Olympic snowboarder, believe it or not, represented Canada. Yeah, represented Canada at the 2002 Games. Left that sport, apparently began selling marijuana and graduated up to cocaine. In 2009, he was arrested as part of a sting. He did a couple years in jail, and then he got out and began to build what seems like a pretty large cocaine empire. The FBI field office in Los Angeles said this month that he shipped about 60 metric tons of cocaine through Southern California. And the agency has also said that he's a member of the famed ultra-violent Sinaloa cartel in Mexico. The head of the FBI, Kash Patel, at a news conference called him, quote, a modern-day El Chapo, a modern-day Pablo Escobar, for overseas listeners who aren't aware, because those are names that are pretty much most Americans know.
Pablo Escobar, yeah. Pablo Escobar is famous over here as well.
El Chapo is Joaquin Guzman, who is actually the former head of the Sinaloa cartel, one of the biggest traffickers of recent times. He's now serving a life sentence at what is known as a supermax prison in Colorado. And Escobar, as he said, most listeners know him. He's one of the most famous drug lords of all time, pioneered the growth of cocaine in Colombia back in the 1980s.
Vince, what's a supermax? It's not a Super McDonald's or anything like that?
No, you guys have that chain. Isn't that the name of your fast food chain?
Yeah, Supermax is a food chain in Ireland,
Yeah.
but it's Supermax. It's a Supermax
Supermax,
prison.
right. Apostrophe S. Yeah. This is Supermax with an X.
Okay.
Not a fast food restaurant. It's a facility in Colorado that is a federal prison that's designed to hold the worst of the worst. So
Okay.
El Chapo is there, the Unabomber, Timothy McVeigh, who
They're all
executed the 1995 bombing in Oklahoma City, terrorists, mobsters, those kinds of people.
So everybody if you have a film made about you, you're probably in a Supermax prison.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever escaped from one?
No. As I understand it, I don't think it's ever been close. It's just a ridiculously secure, redundant facility. I think it's designed for things like, if we have a foreign terrorist in here, Al-Qaeda might send a cell to try and break the guy out. I think it's that level of
It's high up in the Rockies, is it? Yeah.
It's actually down towards the south end. I don't know how high it is, but it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So Wedding, last year, he was named to the FBI's 10 most wanted list. If you're not familiar with that, it's exactly what it sounds like. And as you said, he was captured last week. He's accused of this huge trafficking. There are allegations that he had a witness killed in Colombia, among other charges. But I do want to highlight this case, which is interesting on its own terms. It's going to be a big media story that your former snowboarder crossing the border into Mexico, joining the Sinaloa cartel, all that. But politically, I think there's a couple things. And one, it really serves as a microcosm of this Trump administration. As I've said before, they really are getting things done.
Okay. As a European communist that I am, well.
Yeah, a woke globalist. That's right.
Woke globalist European communist, lily-livered layabout. So what exactly are they getting done?
They're aggressive on trade. They're aggressive on deportations. They've been aggressive overseas.
So have the UK.
Right. I mean, on this topic, they've captured 6 of the 10 that were on the list when they started the term. That's actually a pretty good hit rate. Some of these people just disappear for years. So now I'm not saying all these things that they've done are good. Many people don't like them. You and I have called out multiple things that we don't like. I suspect we're going to do that again very shortly. But there is an activity level from here that I think is just different. It's different from his first term, and I think it's really different relative to American politics this century. Granting that you disagree with a lot of what they've done, do you think that that's a fair assessment, or are you more skeptical that they're actually doing things?
I'm skeptical because I think it's for optics. Because on one hand, he pardoned the former Ecuadorian president, who was a massive cocaine dealer.
Right.
And on the other hand, he's pardoning crypto embezzlers, all manner of very shady people. And I just don't think the rule of law and order and justice as we're used to it, Vince, as you and I grew up with and are used to it, is being observed in the USA right now. I mean, can the FBI even be trusted anymore?
Well, this story gets to that question a little bit because it really depends on what part of the FBI are that you're talking to. They've had a ton of upheaval. They've had agents reassigned for supposedly making politically motivated prosecutions under Biden. There's been a lot of unrest, but they are getting things done. And I do think that the average agent on the street, as of right now, you can trust. But at the top, when you talk about Kash Patel, can he be trusted? No. I do think there's a sense in the FBI, which is echoed across a lot of the departments, that things are getting done in spite of their leadership, not because of their leadership.
Yeah.
And to your point, that those leaders are really focused on the optics. Kristi Noem posing with R-15s next to border guards like she's out conducting raids and fighting off the cartels single-handedly. And we see that in this story with Patel. This is kind of why I wanted to bring it up. It's a perfect example of what you're
He tweeted about the FBI's role apprehending Ryan Wedding on Mexican soil.
Yeah, he tweeted about that. He keeps jumping on Twitter and getting into trouble. After Charlie Kirk was murdered, he had to jump on Twitter and say, "Oh, we captured the suspect." And then, within minutes, everyone's like, "Nope, he's just out running his mouth. He doesn't know what he's talking about."
Yeah, Mexico's president is disputing Patel's account, and it's caused a bit of a diplomatic incident. It would be my reading of it, working in those circles in the past, that the Mexico's president is saying, Patel's full of
This is important, and it has the potential to become a hugely important issue. As I mentioned before, there's debate at the moment over how Wedding wound up in American custody. And the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, has said that he surrendered. She pointed to an Instagram post from Wedding's account that showed him in front of the U.S. Embassy as evidence for this. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, which is Canada's public broadcaster, then went to the Instagram account, realized that the image was AI generated, and said, told Sheinbaum, what are you doing here? This is not real. That he doesn't run this Instagram account and this picture is fake. So then Sheinbaum has to come out and explain it. She's now blaming Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, of course, that it's Meta's fault because they didn't tag the image as AI generated. And she's saying, well, I know he surrendered because the U.S. told me so. Wedding's lawyer is coming out and saying, no, he didn't surrender. They came into Mexico and they arrested him.
Which is the point of what you're getting at, that the world is running around with its head on fire and it's actually not paying close attention to the United States snatching people from other countries, apart from Maduro and Venezuela, of course. But, going into other countries and doing extrajudicial kidnappings is not it's not a great look.
That's the echo here, right? That they went into Venezuela to get Maduro and they went into Mexico to get Wedding. And in both cases, they violated sovereignty.
Yeah, and then so that would seem to indicate nowhere from Mexico down to the very tip of Chilean Patagonia is safe from Trump's people going in and snatching people.
And we also have reports this week that the same thing happened in Scotland. There was a seized oil tanker that went into a Scottish port. According to multiple Scottish officials, there was a court order saying that none of the people on that tanker were supposed to leave Scotland, and the U.S. went in and took the captain and another unnamed crewman and flew them back to the States. And there are people in Scotland now complaining quite bitterly that the U.S. violated sovereignty there. So if you believe that thing that it only takes three to see a pattern, there is this growing sense, admittedly an unclear sense. Let's be clear. I don't want it to jump to conclusions in either Mexico or Scotland. We'll see what they say.
I can jump to conclusions. I won't let you jump to conclusions. I will. The United States is behaving like a rogue state, similar to maybe Iran or North Korea. North Korea famously used to snatch people from Japan all the time. So that's where we're at. I think. Is Kash Patel, is he a competent person to lead the FBI?
I mean, I said that before, right? That the people at the top, it seems like it's about optics, not competence.
Yeah,
he is fully about optics.
Give me some background on him. Nobody in Ireland knows who he is or what he's about.
Even if no one in Ireland knows who he is, I would guess that most listeners can guess why he has the job, and that was loyalty. It's not law enforcement experience. He has zero law enforcement experience. He has pretty much zero experience managing large organizations. He was a public defender in Florida. He wound up involved at a pretty low level in the first Trump administration. And then he got involved with the quote-unquote Russiagate scandal. He wound up working with Devin Nunes, who is a congressman who pushed the theory that there was collusion among the Democrats and the media about the Russia interfering in the 2016 presidential election and all this. And that kind of got his star up. When Trump was out of office, he very publicly demonstrated the extent of his loyalty in a quite funny way.
He wrote books and loyalty. There's a very fine line between loyalty and sycophancy, I think, isn't there?
I don't think the line's that fine, and I don't think that line has anything to do with what Kash Patel wrote. Kash Patel wrote a children's book in 2020, which is called The Plot Against the King. This would turn into a trilogy of books. And I know that some Irish listeners might think that we're joking, or that we read some satirical anti-Trump website and didn't realize that this was satire. I promise you every word of what I'm about to say is true. The Plot Against the King includes a character named Hillary Queenton, another character.
Which is meant to be Hillary Clinton, yeah.
I think if you try and go.
Pretty obvious.
Yeah. It is a children's book that contains Hillary Queenton, Donald Trump, and a wizard named Kash.
Okay.
Yeah. The wizard named Kash, the heralds who spread important news across the land with their herald trumpets, had sung of Kash's fame ever since he figured out that the Russianians, I guess is how you pronounce it,
Okay.
We're cheating in the jousting tournaments. This is election conspiracies for 3 and 4-year-olds, basically.
Right. Yeah. Just researching this, and I was surprised that he wrote 3 books. I was kind of as surprised as he looks. Is he getting Botox in the eyes?
I don't know what the deal with his eyes are. No one really knows.
No, it could be a case that he's working for Trump and he's constantly surprised at what's going on around him. And maybe that's why he's always so wide-eyed.
It really does. Yeah. He looks wired all the time.
So this guy he's not, as we say in Ireland, a full deck, or he's a couple of bottles short of a slab of beer. So taking these books together, it's less about entertaining children and it's more about indoctrinating them, I think. Is it? Would that be fair to say?
I think he would argue it's both. I mean, he wouldn't use the word indoctrination. One of the very clear points of the book, and there's an interesting online magazine named New Lines, which wrote about what the books say about Patel's worldview and even MAGA's worldview, is that the books have this constant repetition that the mainstream media are lying, that the people who tell the stories are not true. And the trilogy goes on to 2020, and then the third one is 2024. Patel actually published it before Trump won the election, but he predicted it correctly. You'll be surprised to know that the trilogy wraps up with Donald Trump's triumphant return. You may also be a little more surprised to know that in the third book, Donald Trump drop kicks a dragon and then does a double backflip.
The man can barely walk. You know, he's walking around. He is an 80-year-old man, so
well, yeah. I mean, it's a children's book. He's taken some license, but
it's a campaign rally written in crayon, is what it is.
It really is. Exactly it's nuts. By all accounts, it's just nuts.
It's politics dressed up as a bedtime story, I think.
Right.
The good king
and this
is
is kind of
right.
the point that New Lines makes, though, is that that's a little bit of what MAGA is. And I think particularly if you look at that QAnon theory, which Patel has flirted with from time to time, that it really is a fairy tale view of the world. It's really purely good versus evil. And that's kind of like the not so funny takeaway, is that these books are written to tell 4-year-olds that the other side, it's not that they're incorrect, not that people have different opinions, that the people who are fighting Donald Trump, that Hillary Clinton and the Heralds and the Russianian, Adam Schiff is in there. It's bananas. But in any case, Patel is, to your point, yeah, it's a little bit indoctrinating. He's trying to teach 4-year-olds that these people are evil.
So if the adults are not able to understand what's going on in the books, well, how are children, I wonder?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. The idea is, the adults who believe the books get them for their children. So to raise proper MAGA soldiers.
He's like a drunk man giving a civics lesson, I think, is he?
Pretty much, yeah.
Instead of holding a book, he's holding a coloring book. Maybe I don't know. They're not making any sense. And here's USA's big problem. This is where I think USA have a big problem. When you have very serious people outside the USA looking in at the United States and looking at Kash Patel, sometimes in an almost kind of grim amusement at what's going on, and it goes to the core as why Trump is not taken seriously, is Patel is seen as a deeply unserious character.
Right.
Okay. He can't be trusted. He was due to have a meeting with the director of MI5, and he told people in the UK that, can we go skiing while we're having the chat and this kind of thing? You don't go skiing with the director of MI5, and you wanted to go to a Premier League match, a soccer match also.
Right.
And people in the UK were saying, this guy is not for real. He's not for real. Yeah. He's not a serious person.
There have been similar, complaints about him here too. Again, optics over competence. And there's actually a question over why he just happened to be in Mexico at the time Wedding was arrested. He said he was there on unrelated business. But again, to our point about whether you can trust the FBI, no, I don't think people trust that. Because when he's saying things about Wedding being the next Guzman or the next Escobar, those aren't true. I mean, those are just ridiculous assertions. There's a really wonderful independent journalist named Yohan Grillo who's covered cartels for like 20 years. He has a Substack, which we'll recommend. Grillo wrote on his Substack that the comparisons were, quote, completely overblown. I mean, they're just ridiculous. And again, we have the same thing across all these cabinet leaders. There's just so much focus on optics. You can see that on the social media accounts of the United States government with these AI generated pictures and memes and all this stuff. And yeah, I get your point looking in, because being here, I'm going to sit and laugh about, Kash Patel's, silly children's books and Donald Trump doing backflips. And it is, as you put it, grimly funny, but we've been doing this for 10 years, and it's just kind of hard to step back and just think about how crazy this is.
Yes.
Like, I'm really not supposed to be using expletives. I don't know how else to express it.
The lunatics have taken over the asylum, Vince.
Yeah, but there's just so many aspects of this, and we're going to get to, of course, one more in a little bit. What has become normalized? People talk about like the killing of Preddy, and they go, this is how fascism starts, when things like that become normalized for a portion of the population. What has become more broadly normalized, just in terms of expression, in terms of competence, in terms of honesty? We Americans are not quite realizing what the hell is going on and where we're headed. And I think this story is just a very, very small microcosm of that, of just the fact that
the malaise that's infecting all strata of American society at the moment.
We have this story. It is good news that this guy is captured, but we are getting this story from an agency and a government that pretty clearly we just simply cannot trust anything they say at face value. And we're sitting here speculating as to whether they are just on a pattern of violating international sovereignty, which could potentially have significant blowback.
But there's other sovereign issues going on here. What's happening in Georgia? There was something caught my eye about the FBI looking for ballot boxes that I thought we'd left behind us in 2020.
This story is not getting enough attention in America. When I was putting notes together for this episode last night, I went to the New York Times website, and you actually had to scroll down to see it, which to me is insane. I think it should be at the top banner headlines. So yesterday, the FBI, under the leadership of Kash Patel, noted children's book author, executed a search warrant for an election center in Fulton County, Georgia. According to a copy of the warrant seen by the Times, FBI agents were authorized to search for all physical ballots from the 2020 election. Fulton County it includes most of Atlanta. It has been a big part of election conspiracies from the jump. Rudy Giuliani.
Is it Democrat or Republican, Vince?
It's much more Democrat. That's why they're there. Yeah. Typical. I mean, urban centers, and particularly African-American urban neighborhoods, go very heavily Democratic. The GOP has been focusing on this from the jump. Rudy Giuliani, among many people, defamed these two election workers, said that they were passing this thumb drive that contained stolen data. They wound up getting death threats and all sorts of stuff. Giuliani lost a $148 million defamation suit against them. They successfully sued a bunch of other people for making those claims. That's all part of it. Georgia, of course, is where Trump called the Secretary of State, a Republican, no less, a guy named Raffensperger, and told him that he needed to, quote, find 11,000 votes to turn the state over. So we now know that the FBI under Patel.
And wasn't just the FBI, okay? Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, was caught on camera participating, which is really worrying.
It's hugely worrying, A, because she's not really supposed to be there, and B, she's a nut job conspiracy theorist.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we just get to the absolute utter lack of competence under these people. I mean, some of the conspiracy theories that she's pushed. This is not political. These people are out of their bleeping minds. So
this is an escalation, I think, Vince, of Trump doing his utmost to postpone the midterm elections. Now, I am not a conspiracy theorist, but I do like a good conspiracy. And if Trump were to lose the midterms, then he is under serious trouble. He's in serious trouble legally, isn't he?
He is not in serious trouble legally because the Supreme Court has said that whatever you do when you're president can't be a crime.
Oh, okay, fair enough. So he is.
He is in serious trouble politically. The simple case here is, as of right now, if you look at kind of polling experts or if you look at prediction markets, based on the votes, people think the Democrats have, let's call it, about a 75% chance to take control of the House during the midterms in November.
Okay, polymarket, here I come.
Yeah, and roughly a 1/3 chance to take the Senate. If the Democrats get the House and the Senate, Trump is getting impeached.
Yeah.
Most of his cabinet members are going to get impeached. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
These are, I've seen references to Nuremberg 2. There'll be a Nuremberg 2. They'll line Pat Tell and Tulsi Gabbard and Trump up against a wall. They won't get hung, but they'll go to jail for a long time, won't they?
Yeah, I mean...
But it's not going to happen, though. They won't take the Senate, will they?
No, I don't think that they would do that. The Democrats have said this before. Democrats are still angry at Obama that when he took over in 2009, he didn't have committees and investigations into criminal activity during the housing bubble, that nobody was convicted. And people were angry at Biden that, as much as the Republicans have sat there and said, oh, the government was being weaponized. We've talked about the independent counsel, Jack Smith, saying that he basically, I had evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that there was a conspiracy among Republicans to do these fake electors and overthrow the election. Biden didn't actually push as hard as he could have. I'm skeptical that if a Democratic president took office in 2029, that they would be necessarily different. It's just too hard. It's too divisive. I mean, at that point, Trump's going to be, 83? So
not too old for jail, though.
But in any case, to your point about the midterms, I don't think that they're going to be postponed. I think that's a red line that's just too far.
Trump likes to push the red lines, though, doesn't he?
He likes to push the red line. I think he actually does have a decent sense of kind of how far he can go without losing opinion.
That's the first time I've heard... Sorry, Vince, that's the first time I've heard Trump and decent in the same sentence. Sorry, go on. I just I took you off piece.
Perhaps, and I imagine many listeners didn't think I would be the one to say that sentence. Maybe a better way to put it is I think he figures out when he's crossed the line. I think he's done that in this past week. He's figured out that public opinion has turned against ICE, and that's why he's changed his strategy here. But I think there's two things. Number one, a lot of people have made this point. It's very easy for them to wind up with ICE being near polling locations on election days in heavily minority neighborhoods to discourage voters who would normally turn out very heavily Democratic. I don't think that's off the table. The broader point here is this country is just sailing towards the November midterm. You can use whatever metaphor you want. Head in the sand, whistling by the graveyard, not paying attention. Again, as of right now, based on polls and based on political history, midterms almost always go against the guy in charge because Americans are pains in the asses and we vote for somebody and then we're oh, we didn't get everything we wanted. Screw this guy.
But it's a scale of the defeat, I think, is what Trump fears, I think. I think he knows the defeat is coming. I think it's the scale of it is that it's hard to quantify at the moment.
Well, if he knows the defeat is coming, then he's going to do whatever he can ahead of time to do it. And I think the bigger problem is if the defeat comes, do we really believe that if we wake up the day after election day and the networks are calling, the House, even just the House for the Democrats, that Trump's be okay, that's fine. Now he did do that in 2018. So we do have that, but his election fraud stuff in 2016 was pretty half-hearted. Basically the last 2 weeks of the election when everybody thought he was going to lose, including Trump himself, he just started going to rallies going, it's rigged, which gave him an excuse for, losing without being a loser as he would see it. So I think it was easier for him to get away in 2018. There is no way after what he's said and done about 2020 and January 6th, people being political prisoners, that he can lose one of those houses of Congress and tell his supporters that the election was above board. That literally, there's no way that he can do that.
Yeah, he was posting the Truth Social about how he was robbed in 2020 again this morning. He was firing off a post a minute almost. He said there were about 31 posts about 6 a.m. USA time. Do you buy into his cognitive decline that people are talking about?
No, I still don't.
The Slovakian president, a notoriously discreet fellow, came back and decided to tell the whole of Europe that he was shocked at Trump's cognitive decline. He came back and said he couldn't believe the state Trump was in.
Yeah, I shouldn't have dismissed it so out of hand. There have been people who are increasingly drawing parallels between Trump and Biden. But to me, the story that he's decline is explaining any of this. I honestly don't think it's all that relevant.
Is it not relevant because of the people he has around him pushing the narrative and pushing the agenda?
It's not relevant because of the people around him. It's not relevant because it's not like he's different. It's not like 10 years ago he wouldn't have been pushing this nonsense. I mean, he is a person who first and foremost believes his own. And so the longer he's been talking about elections, the deeper he's going to go. And he has, again, circling back to this idea of just what has been normalized. Is one of those posts is a repost of a Twitter post, which cites the testimony of somebody who claims that the 2020 stolen election revolved around Obama diverting $400 million of cash that we actually did give to Iran as part of the deal that Obama negotiated.
Yep, that was the deal.
So,
yeah.
Right. Diverting $400 million of that. It is, quote, funneling through the Dubai embassy. I don't know what that means. Dubai is not a sovereign nation that has embassies.
No, it's
Isn't
part
that right?
of the United Arab.
Right.
Of the United Arab
Yeah.
Emirates. Yeah.
So it goes through an imaginary embassy to operatives in Italy and
Nice part of the world.
Yes. Okay.
It's all very James Bond.
Yeah. Except like if you wrote this James Bond script, they'd kick you out of Hollywood. They'd be like, this is dumb. Like, yeah, it's James Bond, but you still have to have like some basis in reality. It is funneled through the Dubai embassy to operatives in Italy and Merrill Lynch in Geneva, Switzerland. This is a problem because there is no Merrill Lynch in Geneva, Switzerland. There hasn't been since a couple of years after the financial crisis. Merrill Lynch became part of Bank of America. Bank of America dumped the international operations. So that doesn't exist. In return, Italian officials at Leonardo SPA, I'm not entirely sure what they do, used military satellites to help hack U.S. voting machines, flipping votes from Trump to Biden using CIA-developed tools like Hammer and Scorecard. China reportedly coordinated the whole operation.
That is just mad.
Yeah.
Bad. And you say you don't think he's in cognitive decline. I think his Truth Social posts, if he's not in cognitive decline, he's delirious with lack of sleep or something.
There's two other explanations. One is that he's just flat delusional. He kind of always has been delusional. He's always lived in his own fantasy world, which I think if you look at his biography has some truth. But I think the more prosaic explanation is that he just does not care. If he pushes this out on Truth Social, it's going to energize his base. It's going to energize his base at a time when he needs that base energized. Again, he just pissed off a portion of his base over the Second Amendment, and he's trying to climb down from Greenland and climb down from Minneapolis. I guess the question comes down, do you think he believes that this is true? Do you think he cares whether or not it's true? It just feels good. I don't know the answer, and that's one of the terrifying things is that he's been around for a decade, and we don't know the answer.
To hear your point that nobody knows whether he actually believes that or not is absolutely terrifying. And I think it could be a case of that. The likes of Tulsi Gabbard, Stephen Miller, all those quite nefarious characters, the bad guys in Star Wars or something, are feeding him these conspiracy theories. And they might believe it, or they might want to believe it. And their intent, and especially around Stephen Miller, this is a man that wants to see an end to democracy in the United States. And I suspect he's playing Trump. And Trump believes him, depending on what side of the bed he gets out of. And the scary part here, like you said, is nobody knows if it's true, if he believes it is a part of a cunning plan that he has. Nobody knows. And everybody outside the United States is looking in and goes, we can't trust these people. We cannot trust these people.
You're right. We don't know the answer as to what exactly he's doing. But I do just kind of want to emphasize it's the same point with Patel's children's book. It's the same point with Stephen Miller and even J.D. Vance coming out and calling Alex Preddy a terrorist. This stuff is all pretty much normalized. It's even normalized among anti-Trump people. It's even normalized among the media. I don't understand, for instance, why if he's sending an FBI team in to capture these ballots, every Republican in the Senate should be asked today, tomorrow, was the 2020 election stolen? What do you think about what Trump is doing? It's not going to happen. It's not even making the news. There's just kind of the same, like, well, it's just Trump's thing. Even some of his supporters go, yeah, I mean, look, he shouldn't talk about the election like that, but that's just the way he is. Like, no, this is not just the way somebody is. You can't have the president of the United States reposting conspiracy theories about imaginary embassies and closed businesses. And by the way, accusing a former president of treason. I mean, straight, unabashed, like world history making treason. I don't think there's ever been more treason than what they're saying Obama has done. All this has been normalized, and we're going to talk about this more going forward, I'm sure, but I am looking at November. I don't see how we don't have, in the best case scenario, constitutional crisis where Trump loses the election and says, well, we're not going to seat the Democrats because I say that those elections are false.
It's like having a drunk man in charge of everything, essentially, because he's just so unpredictable. And I mean, speaking of drunk men, I'm going to ask for your opinion, Vince, because you're a man of numbers and finance. I happened to be in a pub last night, and there's two guys at the bar, and they're talking about the price of gold being something like $5,000 an ounce.
Yeah.
So
just cleared 5,500 actually. Yep.
Today is it okay? So it's going up and up and up and up and up, and that when things shoot up like that, they have a tendency to come back down pretty quickly. But also, I'm very wary of pub bores talking about the price of shares or the price of gold in a pub. And these two guys, they're lovely fellows, but they've 20 digits on them, and that's probably the limit that they can count to. So why are they talking about gold?
The line here you'll hear sometime is that the guy can't count to 21 without unzipping his pants.
Very good.
Always
I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
I think I'm robbing that, I'm afraid. Is all this geopolitical stability caused by Trump the reason why people are buying gold and pushing the price of gold upwards?
That's the stereotype. Part of it is that the dollar is getting weaker, which is itself a little bit of a reaction to geopolitical instability. But the standard stereotypical case for gold is that you buy it because it goes up when things get dicey. It went up in 08, 09. It was a big, big thing on the right in the first years of the Obama term. They were all talking about buying gold, and the gold companies were advertising all over Fox News and things like that because you needed to stock up on this safe asset because of all the terrible, terrible things Obama was going to do. He was going to, send in the black helicopters and steal your money and put in 80% income tax rates and all this stuff. So gold is a tough thing to discuss intelligently about because it's kind of a weird thing. It's not a business. If you look at a business and you go, well, this business made $1 billion last year, you can anchor your expectation of what it's worth based on that. Gold is just kind of valuable for the most part because other people think it's valuable. It has some industrial use, but when you ask people why should gold trade at $5,500 an ounce, that's what they say. Well, it's the original money, right? They wanted gold 5,000 years ago. It'll always have value and its value always go up. Yeah, I think that's likely a reflection of instability. I think it's also, as many of these things are, as you alluded to, there's probably a little bit of a bubble, social media, advertising.
Yeah, with social media, as my famous saying, as I say a lot on this podcast, is to blame for everything. And
everything.
I read a quote today about Bitcoin, and it was in Der Spiegel, and my German's pretty poor, but the gist of the line was that the worst thing that could happen to Bitcoin was that people stop talking.
And there is a little bit of that sense with gold too. Certainly, that it gets, that there are a lot of people promoting it right now. And I'm not going to give any investment advice, but I will say, as somebody who's done this for a long time, this advice goes back more than a century. This famous JP Morgan line about when the shoeshine boys talking about stocks, you should probably sell, any kind of asset. When your taxi driver's talking about Bitcoin or when guys in the pub are talking about gold, quite often that's an anecdotal sign that maybe the run's near an end, because the logic is basically that at that point, there's nobody left. There's no one new left to buy, right? If all the guys in the pub own it, who else is left to buy it?
Absolutely. And that is the soundest advice we will ever give you on this podcast. The only financial advice we will ever give you on this podcast, because
be careful.
Finance. Yes. Yeah. We legally, I think we have to say this. We do not give financial advice.
No, that is, and I don't even know the EU rules, so let's make double sure I don't get involved in those. But that's not financial advice, just a little bit of spitballing about an asset. Gold's going to do what it's going to do, but there's been enough instability to make it go up. Let's put it that way.
So we'll go to something else that all that's glitter and gold, and that is the Super Bowl is on next week. So on Tuesday, we are going to do a podcast on the Super Bowl. Aren't we, Vince?
Yeah, we're going to use the Super Bowl as a launching pad into sports. I'm really looking forward to it because in our very first episode, we talked about how ignorant Americans are of Europe. When it comes to sport, I really know absolutely nothing, and I'm actually going to try and keep it that way. So I'm kind of surprised at what you tell me and things like that. So I'm going to learn a lot. It's going to be a lot lighter discussion than this one about the collapse of the United States.
We need a break from... No, unless Trump launches a nuclear attack on Canada, of course, we're going to have to change course.
No.
We're sticking to this, are we? We're sticking to this. Okay.
We'll do the nuclear attack on Friday.
No, I have to give you my sporting mantra also, Vince. You need to know, and the listeners should know this in advance.
Okay.
If you can't kick, punch, or slam it into the floor, I do not rate it as a sport. So,
okay, that's a good one.
That's my mantra. And I'm afraid I don't rate golf either. Any guy that can smoke a cigar going around, I can't take it seriously enough. I'm sorry.
It's a hell of a game, but yeah, I agree. It's hard to call it a sport.
Right. I'm Tull from the Irish Politics Newsletter.
And I'm Vince Martin. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you on Tuesday.
I'm off to buy some gold, Vince. Bye-bye.
Bye.